I've made a cute puzzle platformer where death is not only inconsequential, but can be straight up beneficial. Hi, this is FeatureKreep. You probably know me from. Uh, wait, you don't know me at all. Well, in that case, let me introduce myself. I am an aspiring solo game developer who's had some luck in game jams, but not so much in finishing any of my actual games. It's a tale as old as time. A game dev whose project folder is full of half-finished Zelda likes, Metroid likes, Castlevania likes, Mega Man likes. So, I decided to start my own Devlog series to keep myself accountable, talk like I know my stuff, and not let another project die. Pinky promise. Incidentally, my new game revolves around this exact concept, death. I think death is probably mankind's greatest source of motivation. It forces us to pick up exercise, self-care, and healthy diets.
If I shoot one elk, I could eat it for like 8 months.
But still, just like anime characters, we must live each day with full knowledge that we're just an accident away from a one-way ticket to isekai. Death in video games, on the other hand, doesn't carry the same weight. Oh, you died to a boss? Well, it doesn't matter. It's
Rewind time.
sometimes even quite literally. Since the dawn of video games, death as a concept mainly existed to serve as a punishment. The games used to penalize you hard for using the wrong strategy. One misstep and you lose your progress, your high score, your money, and ultimately your sanity. Classic arcade and NES games were notorious for creating extremely challenging situations. Nintendo Hard has become a term for a reason. The difficulty in those games was a rather cheap way of delivering more bang for your buck. With a little dash of bullshit, a 20-minute game transforms into a 10-hour nightmare. Thankfully, our game designing sensibilities have matured since then, and with the checkpoint system becoming more and more lenient, this penalty is now barely noticeable. Nowadays, death is less of a punishment and more of a fail state. This makes things a little bit more tolerable, but at the same time makes time even more inconsequential. As a result, games had to become more creative with their game over screens, to add at least an illusion of tension and make dying more memorable. Sometimes even too memorable. Games like Tomb Raider here try to make us empathize with the main character by killing them in a decidedly non-family friendly fashion. But I wouldn't say that's a very good method either. At the end of the day, it's a fictional character who will come back as soon as you press continue. Or is it? Some games do draw a line between a chaos state and an actual death. Final Fantasy is a perfect example. You can die all you want in combat, as long as you've got the Phoenix down, but hit a story point and oh no, the stakes! But still, it's just a character. Worst case scenario, you start a new game and look at them, alive and well. The same doesn't apply to death that isn't scripted. Permanent death, or permadeath for sure, is a tool used to great effect by roguelikes. Your character and their unique skills and items are lost to you forever when they die. Depending on the item pool and level randomization, you may never even get the same combination of stats, ever. And even though on paper, permadeath doesn't sound that fun, players would often apply the same principle in other games to create an additional challenge. Take Nuzlocke or Fire Emblem No Restart challenges, for example. The problem is, you can still cheat your way around it if you really want to. Just hit the load button and no one will know.
That's fucking illegal.
Plus, it's not like every game is suited to permadeath. In fact, there are games that are more interested in exploring the consequences of death. And naturally, since this video is about death mechanics, you all expect me to talk about a certain game in which you lose your precious resources when you die and get one chance to get them back. I'm of course talking about Zombie. In Zombie, when you die, your character becomes, well, a zombie, and you can retrieve the items that were lost by finding and defeating your previous self. This is a great risk and reward scenario, but it also doubles as a good in-universe explanation of how players can continue playing after essentially game over. Another example of a game that adds context to game overs is Rogue Legacy. Your new characters are actually the descendants of the character who's just died, each inheriting some of your traits and developing new ones. Some more useful than others. Or take the Shadow of Mordor, where you can die and come back however many times you want because of your character's special ability. This is something that other characters will comment upon, and enemies will even remember sending you to the other side.
I know, you the one I killed before!
You know damn well who I am. Who the fuck is that?
Other games like Tales from the Borderlands frame their stories as just that, stories. Since your character must be alive to tell the tale, every death is treated as them going a bit too far with their narrative.
Okay, maybe I didn't, technically die, but I could have.
Narration as a framing device is a surprisingly common occurrence in video games.
Did I say they were Apaches? I said Clanton's cowboys attacked me Apache style.
But with, more often than not, mixed results.
Try as he might, Ratchet could not breathe underwater.
Indigo Prophecy, for example, frames your game over as one of the possible endpoints of the narrative. The protagonist says,
"That's how my story ends,"
and briefly recaps the events each time you bite the bullet. And listen, I've got many problems with Indigo Prophecy. But that bit was its most compelling part, because the monologue changes depending on which point of the story you die, and it all sounds organic. Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human expand on this and create entire endings depending on which character lives and which, well... In most games that I've listed so far, death is, at most, just one of the aspects of gameplay. More often than not, it's either a nuisance or an afterthought. I have seldom, if ever, seen death being used as a utility. One of the few games that come to mind is Avenging Spirit, a Kirby-like adventure where you play as a ghost that can possess other characters. In a sense, dying can be beneficial, as different characters have different skills and are better suited to specific challenges. There is also a 2013 Flash game called Revive. In this game, you turn into a ghost when you die, and this lets you fly around the level, pass through objects, and collect otherwise inaccessible keys. The only thing you cannot do in this form is exit the stage, so you have to revive yourself with red jelly, I guess, and complete the level. Revive is a great puzzle platformer with one very surprising story choice that has stayed in my mind for years. It has actually inspired me to start working on a game that also tackles the concept of death in a fun new way. Yes, ladies and gents, 10 minutes into the video, I'm finally ready to talk about my project. I used to call this game Clone Boy because it uses the Game Boy aesthetic, and because I lack the imagination to come up with something better. But then somebody told me that my tagline, "Over my dead body," works better as the game's actual title. Anyway, imagine, you play as this cute but completely expendable clone. You're fragile and die easily to most things. Luckily, your next version of you is ready to go in seconds. That is not to say that your death is meaningless, because the bodies of the previous clones remain on the screen and change the way you interact with the level. You can use these bodies as platforms, cover, extra weight, and so on. It's up to you how many times you want to die to complete the level, though you might get a C- if you linger too much. Also, you can change the color palette, because of course you can. And there you have it, folks, Over My Dead Body. It's a simple but unique enough concept that I don't think I've seen in a video game format.
Are you sure about that?
Of course, it's all in early development, so a lot can change. But if you're interested to see a new take on the concept of death, feel free to follow me on Twitter and subscribe to my YouTube account. Lastly, if you'd like to see more videos with my thoughts on different video game topics, as well as support the development of Over My Dead Body, you can subscribe on Patreon. I'm not asking, by the way. This is your last warning. We wouldn't want it to be over your dead body now, do we? There aren't a lot of Patreon subscribers right now, but I love them all equally. Except for you and you. I love you the most. Well, thanks for tuning in. This was FeatureKreep, and I hope to see you all next time.